My brother accused my daughter of stealing in front of his entire wedding reception. I didn't raise my voice. I just asked one question, and 5 minutes later, I was the only one in that room still smiling. My younger brother, Tyler, stood up at his own wedding reception and said, loud enough for the tables nearby to hear, "I saw her near my jacket earlier. Did you take my iPhone 17 Pro, sweetheart?" He was looking directly at my 7-year-old daughter, Lily. My name is Claire, I am 32 years old, a marketing director, and I felt every part of my body go still before I even fully understood what he just said. 200 guests turned to look at my daughter, forks paused halfway to mouths, conversations dying mid-sentence all around the room. Lily's hand went straight to the hem of her dress, the way it does whenever she's nervous, and she said quietly, almost too quietly to hear, that she didn't take anything. I stood up immediately. I said, "She didn't take anything, Tyler, don't do this to her." He didn't back down. He smiled, almost gently, and said it again, like he was simply being reasonable about an unfortunate situation. 5 minutes later, I was the only one in that ballroom still smiling. Tyler has always been the one things get smoothed over for. Growing up, it was small, a broken promise here, a miscommitment there, and our parents would say, "That's just Tyler, don't make a thing of it." As adults, it got bigger, but the pattern never really changed shape, just scale, the way these things tend to do when nobody intervenes early enough. He'd show up late to things that mattered, borrow money he was slow to return, and somehow the conversation always ended with everyone else adjusting around him instead of the other way around. Every single time, without exception, without anyone ever quite naming it out loud. I stopped pointing it out years ago, the way you stop mentioning a crack in the ceiling once you've fully accepted that the house is just going to be like that forever. Standing in that ballroom, watching him look at my daughter the exact way he was looking at her, calm and reasonable on the surface, I understood all at once exactly how far that pattern could actually go if nobody in this family ever stopped it. Tyler kept going in front of his new in-laws, his voice still pleasant, still calm, still reasonable sounding to anyone who hadn't actually watched a 7-year-old's face the moment he started talking. "I'm not saying she's a bad kid, Claire," he said, "but kids take things, it happens, nobody's calling her a thief, I'm just trying to find my phone." Lily's eyes immediately dropped to the floor. Then Tyler added, "When something disappears and she's the last person near it, what am I supposed to think?" A few guests exchanged uncomfortable looks. I didn't raise my voice. I said evenly, "You can ask the venue to pull the camera footage instead of accusing a child in front of 200 people. For just a second, barely a second, Tyler's expression changed. He hesitated. It was small, the kind of pause most people wouldn't notice. But I did. I've spent years reading people in client meetings. That hesitation was the first honest thing I'd seen from him all evening. My mother, sitting 2 seats down, leaned toward me and said quietly, "Claire, please don't ruin the reception over this." For a second, I genuinely thought I'd misheard her. I looked at her and said, "Mom, he just accused Lily of stealing in front of everyone here." She sighed. "I know, sweetheart, but it's his wedding day." In that moment, I understood exactly what mattered most to her, not Lily's feelings. Not the fact that a 7-year-old was sitting there scared and embarrassed. What mattered was the reception, the guests, the photos, and making sure nobody remembered this as the night Tyler's wedding turned uncomfortable. My daughter's humiliation didn't even factor into the equation. I didn't argue. There was no point. Instead, I turned toward the venue manager, who had been quietly watching the entire exchange from a few feet away. Unlike everyone else, she looked concerned about the right person. The venue manager, a calm woman in her 40s, stepped forward and said, "Our cameras run constantly throughout the property, mostly for liability reasons. I can check the timestamp from this afternoon if that would help clear things up quickly." I felt my chest loosen slightly, for the first time since Tyler had said Lily's name out loud. I said, "Yes, please," Tyler said quickly. "That's really not necessary, it's probably nothing," but the manager was already walking toward a small office near the entrance, already pulling out a radio to ask someone to pull the footage from the lobby's security feed for that exact afternoon. I crouched down next to Lily, who was still holding the hem of her dress, and told her quietly that we were going to figure this out together, that she hadn't done one single thing wrong. She nodded, but she didn't let go of the dress, not even a little. "If you need to hear what happened next, stay with me." The room got quieter while we waited, the way rooms do when something is unresolved and everyone can feel it without being told exactly why. The DJ had paused the music, unsure whether to continue into the next song or hold off entirely. Tyler stood near the head table, not looking at me, not looking at Lily, instead making small talk with his best man in a voice that was trying very hard to sound unbothered and casual. I noticed he kept touching his pants pocket, an almost unconscious gesture, like he was still checking for something he routinely kept on him but had left behind. His new wife stood a few feet away, watching him with an expression I couldn't quite read yet, not anger, not yet, just a kind of careful attention, the look of someone deciding how much of this to actually believe before she had any real reason to doubt the man she'd just married a few hours earlier that same afternoon. The venue manager returned with a tablet and said, gently, that she'd found the footage from earlier that afternoon, right around the time Tyler said he'd last seen his phone. She turned the screen so the closest few of us could see, including Tyler himself. The video showed him, almost an hour before any of this started, taking his iPhone 17 Pro out during a call he'd stepped away to take privately, slipping it into the inside pocket of his jacket, and then setting that jacket down across a chair near the kids' table while he greeted some arriving guests near the entrance. He never picked the jacket back up the same careful way again. His own hands, his own jacket, nobody else anywhere near it in the entire frame, not for a single second. The room had gone completely silent by the time the short clip ended, except for Tyler, who said, quietly, mostly to himself, almost too low to hear, "I thought I had it on me." The venue manager checked the chair where the jacket had been set down and found Tyler's phone underneath it almost immediately, exactly where the footage showed it sliding when the jacket was lifted again later that evening. It hadn't been stolen, it hadn't even been hidden anywhere. It had simply fallen, unnoticed, the way things do when someone sets something down without paying any real attention to where it lands. I picked Lily up, even though she's getting a little old for that now, and held her for a long moment before saying quietly, "Nobody thinks you did anything wrong, sweetheart." Not one single person in this entire room. Tyler's new wife, standing a few feet away, looked genuinely mortified, not at me, not at Lily, but at her own husband, in a way that told me this particular conversation between them was far from finished, even if it wasn't going to happen in front of 200 guests on her own wedding night. Tyler eventually came over later that evening, after the music had started again and most guests had returned to dancing. He stopped beside our table and said, "I wasn't trying to accuse her." I looked at him. "You accused her in front of 200 people. He shifted uncomfortably. "I made a mistake, I was stressed, I wasn't thinking clearly." Not once did he apologize directly to Lily. Not once did he say he was sorry for embarrassing a 7-year-old at his own wedding reception. Instead, he kept explaining himself as if intentions mattered more than what actually happened. My parents stayed silent. They didn't defend Lily earlier and they weren't saying much now. What I remember most isn't Tyler. It's Lily's great-grandmother sitting beside her, quietly reaching under the table and squeezing her hand once. No speech, no lecture. Just one simple gesture that showed more character than every excuse made that night. It's been 1 year. Lily doesn't talk about that day often, but when she does, she doesn't mention the footage or the apology that never really came in any real form. She remembers her great-grandmother's hand finding hers under the table that night. I've noticed she does the same thing now sometimes, at family gatherings, reaching over to quietly hold a younger cousin's hand when something feels tense, without anyone ever asking her to do it. My relationship with my parents is careful now, present for some things and absent for others, and I've stopped expecting Tyler to ever bring any of it up again on his own. I don't take Lily to anything he'll be at, and I haven't explained that boundary to anyone, and I don't plan to start now. If this story stayed with you like this video, subscribe so you never miss one and tell me in the comments. Do you think the rest of the family owes Lily an apology too? 200 guests watched my daughter get accused. 5 minutes later, the only thing left standing was the truth.